Hi there, welcome to Homekeepers. How are you today, my friend? So glad to be with you and hope that you are beginning, to get a little Christmas spirit and enjoying the season. Had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you did too. Hope you got to see a lot of family and friends because that's what it's all about. I'm glad you tuned in today because I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Marilyn Mcdonald. And if I tried to describe all the areas of ministry she's been in, it's just almost overwhelming. And I'll let her tell her story, but we're going to talk about her book, Nuts and Bolts of a Christian Residential Program, and it's a way of hope for troubled women. And people like Marilyn are those that really get that nitty-gritty of the gospel, They don't have a television program, in other words. They are hands-on and working with some of the most fallen, disappointed people, disappointed in life, abused often. And it takes an effort to rebuild a person, And these are the ones I think I really admire the most. So I'm anxious for you to meet Marilyn Mcdonald. And I'm going to join Stephanie for creamy tortilla chicken soup. It's got a lot of interesting ingredients in it, and it's kind of one you could have on hand. It's a recipe you could have on hand for a real quickie, and yet enough ingredients in it, I would say, for an entree, and quite healthy. So watch for that. I'll join her in a minute, and I'd like for you to know that you can contact us, 1-800-229-0059. If you would like to donate, with your credit card or debit card, or write to us. We love your notes, your sweet notes and cards and letters, and you're so thoughtful. We appreciate it. And that address is Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida, 33758. And we thank you. Contact us either way. It's just fine. And how's Stephanie today?
Doing wonderful.
Yes.
Just got back from Tennessee.
Yes, and I was going to say, how's Mom and Daddy?
Doing well. It was beautiful. It was 30 degrees up there. It was amazing. I loved it.
You get to go there often enough that you really experience the season. Because I bet all the leaves are off of the trees.
Yeah, I haven't caught fall at its best yet with all the colors. That's coming.
You got to figure that out.
Yes, I got to figure it out.
And it could be something you'd like to look at a little bit long range because weather patterns can bring it early or late.
Yep.
I'm sure we've done something like this before.
Listen, this is the soup I make when my husband goes to hunt camp. I make a big batch of soup and then I eat it all week and I don't have to cook.
Oh, I thought you sent it with him.
No,
for
me.
Well, like I said, a lot of this stuff you have in your fridge, and we'll taste it, but I have would you say it's an entree?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I have it for dinner.
Yeah, you got the refried beans now. It doesn't require a sandwich, in other words. A lot of soups need a sandwich.
I also put black beans in it. That's the only thing different. Adds a little
You do
more.
Both of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a can of diced tomatoes. It calls for 2 cans of the Rotel diced tomatoes and green chilies. Oh, that one has green chilies too. Okay, I figure.
I was hoping, I didn't pay attention to it because I was trying to get a plain diced, because I wanted to water it down. I don't like hot
like
stuff.
Spicy, so I thought that was just diced tomatoes.
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be. I didn't read the fine print.
Okay. Well, that happens occasionally.
Yes.
I have corn.
That's frozen corn.
Yes, which adds a nice little sweet crunch to it. I have a can of refried beans. This adds a nice smoothness to it, a yummy taste. And then I have 2 cups of chicken broth.
So what do you add to this soup when your husband's gone?
So the only thing that I add to this that's not in here right now is black beans.
Yes.
Now you could use a hamburger with it, cooked hamburger. If you have leftover turkey from Thanksgiving, you could do a turkey.
I like the black beans.
Yeah. You could go a lot of different routes with it.
And this is chicken broth, 2 cans.
Yeah. You could do ground chicken, ground turkey. I mean, you could do many different things, or meatless.
And our chicken is from a rotisserie.
Yeah, you could do meatless with a vegetable broth. That would work, right, Susan? Meatless with a vegetable broth? Yeah, for vegetarian. Yeah. You could put some taco seasoning in here. I've done that before to add another little flavor to it.
But you can see by the ingredients, it's just a hearty one.
Yes, so good.
It's not what they call consommé.
Consommé. It's not consommé.
No, consommé is a little tiny cup that you sip
Yeah.
with one finger in the air.
Yeah, no. Well, we're in Florida and it's not really cold. This would be a great cold weather
Oh yes,
soup.
this is for you people in the north.
Yes.
It's been snowing. I believe it snowed on Thanksgiving Day in New York.
Oh, really?
Watching a little bit of the parade, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get snow, but we woke up to frost on the car and frost on the yard. It was wonderful. I loved it. It smells so fresh outside to me
Well,
when
I'm
it's
a Colorado
cold.
girl, as you know,
Yes.
and I'll never forget the first snow. There was something about it that...
Yes. Well, I was raised in Indiana, northwest
Yes.
Indiana, and we got Lake Michigan effect. So we got lots of snow and below zero
love
temperatures
Indiana.
a lot.
I preached there a lot when I was traveling. Have you? Did you ever go to Brown County? Mm-mm. See, Brown County is known, I think, as the place to go in the fall because it's so beautiful. And I think there was a minister's retreat there or something. And boy, we were there at the peak of the fall one time, and it just...
Well, we left when I was 18, so I was too young to know, to go look at the beautiful colors. Who knew,
Yeah, that comes with age.
Yeah. Okay. This really needs to cook for a while.
Yeah, it needs to cook for a while.
But I just want it to get at least a little warm so you can taste it. Okay.
And to our wonderful crew here,
yes. Okay.
you can have some of this.
Yes. See, black beans would just be a nice little addition to it, right? Okay. I'm trying to stir up the heat from the bottom.
And that recipe makes a good amount. You freeze it if...
This would be perfect for freezing. Then you bring it out one night and you have dinner.
I make homemade soup a lot and always freeze it.
Yes, you do, with your little baby jars. Yes,
with Gerber's jar.
Yes. Yes. Okay. It's almost Christmas, by the way. I'm just saying. When we're taping.
Yeah.
It's December.
She has on her Jingle Bells earrings.
Yes. There you go.
Okay. That's good. It's a little bit too hot for me.
Okay, a little spicy. Just use diced tomatoes if you don't like it spicy. Yeah. And look, you can have tortilla chips. Put a little
and you're supposed to do this, right?
Yes, there you go. You can get the tortilla strips that they come in the bag.
It really is good, but I'm one of those weird people that can't take any heat.
Oh, you had more to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just stop when I'm a rude person.
Yeah.
Stop right there. If you want this recipe, that information is coming up on your screen. I highly recommend it this time of year, and you could see how easily you could make it and have it on the table in record time. So you'll have a variety of ways you can order the recipe, get it your way, and then I want you to stay right there and meet my guest. Stay there.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, you may receive it by contacting us through social media as listed on the screen. When requesting a copy through the mail, be sure to include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Thank you, and please know we always appreciate hearing from our viewers.
Well, I'm very happy to welcome to the program Marilyn Mcdonald, author of Nuts and Bolts, and this is kind of a pathway to establish a Christian residential program. But I see it a lot bigger than that, Marilyn. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've never, ever had a book like this before. I've had hundreds of books since I've been doing this. But I see this on so many levels, and it could help so many people. It really, really contains the nuts and bolts, because you have to jump through a lot of hoops, legal hoops, to start a ministry. And you've outlined those and given us examples.
And when I finished the book, I would now be ready to start a residential program.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I can see where that information would bleed into other areas. you've compiled it very well. But let's start out with your story before we get into the nuts and bolts, because you have quite a history in ministry and unusual things. Did you grow up in a Christian home?
No, I grew up in an alcoholic, very sadistic, mother very ill, took to the bed very early, had 5 children, and I remember during World War II standing on a wooden orange crate box and cooking dinner at a very young age. I was given the kids, all 5 of the kids, to raise at a very early age, and when I was 16 years old, each one of us, when we reached the age where we could no longer help our mother and dad and wanted to have a little bit of life of our own, they sent us out. And my brother went into the service. My other brother went with another relative. I was put into a home where I took care of other people's children, and I can't even believe I made it through high school, let alone college and seminary. So
Wow.
I was raised to take care of people. That's all I ever knew. And my value always was in, what do you do that's any good? I was told at a very young age, you're not pretty and you're not smart. You need to grow up and get married. And I remember when I graduated for seminary, I was told it was the toughest seminary in the United States. And I remember thinking as I was walking through the line, my parents must have been mistaken, because I made it through this school.
Somebody was wrong.
Somebody was mistaken about this.
Oh, wow.
And when I went into seminary, I had already built from the ground in a section of town a beauty college, and I had owned already 2 salons, and
You were very successful.
I was very successful.
You were a
I was.
millionaire, according to your book.
Yes, I was. But I wasted the money. And when I went to seminary, because when I became rich and when I had everything, I was so empty. And I just felt like life was over, and I was barely 40. And it just seemed, I had the beauty college for 11 years, and I said, you know what? I want to know if there's a God. There has to be something more to life than this.
Where'd you find Jesus?
I found him in seminary. I knew that there was a God, and I knew about the Bible, but I was told as a child I couldn't go to church because I was a Jesus freak. So I couldn't go.
You became a Christian in seminary?
In seminary. And they gave me, I learned Hebrew and Greek at 53 years old with a magnifying glass. That's one of the reasons I wanted to meet you so much, is because I just admire so much the work that you do. And when I went to seminary, the first thing they said was, what are you going to do with your education? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to help women. Well,
And you weren't a Christian at that time?
I didn't have a personal relationship with our Lord and Savior. I had no relationship other than he was out there, and I couldn't ever go to him because I wasn't smart, I was ugly, and I had already lied in life. So therefore I couldn't go. So I knew there was a God, but I wasn't.
It sounded like you had a heart for ministry before you met the Lord.
I always had a heart to help people. When I was 4 years old, I was hiding in a bush, and I remember this so clearly. Please don't let them kill any more Jews. I remember, and then I met a man, and I belonged to a book club. This is the second book I've written, and I belonged to a book club in Beverly Hills, and he had been in the concentration camp, and I lived in San Diego, and they asked me, could I pick him up and take him up there with me? He was such a wonderful man, and it's like that little prayer at 4 years old came true. He came out of the concentration and lived and wrote a book.
Wow. Have you just ever written your life story?
No, they've asked me to, but no, it's not.
Well, send me a copy if you ever do.
Okay, I will.
Okay, so kind of pick it up in your book that you were very, very successful and obviously very smart from business opportunities. So how did you turn that to a ministry that really rescued women? There's no question. And you also did work in Africa.
Yes, I did. When I went to seminary, the people that were in seminary, your professors, their wives, other people, were coming up and asking me when I was on my lunch break, because I would get home from seminary at 11 o'clock at night, and I was back there at 7 in the morning with a Hebrew test and a Greek test. And at lunchtime, they would come over and talk to me and ask me, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, the first thing they said was, one of my professor's wives said, I work in Africa and I want to retire, and anybody can run a home for women. You need to go to Africa. And I said, I don't think I can go to Africa. I don't have any money to go to Africa, and I think I need to have a home for women. I think that's what. So I ended up with both of them. I ended up with a home for women, and when I first started the home, I was still in my last semester of seminary, and I had already made one trip to Africa, and I wanted to die. It was so horrible. It was in 1996. It was so horrible, and the famine was so bad, and all I could smell was death. And I laid down on a dirty mat out in the bush, and I had taken all these young people, and I was the team leader. And as I was laying there, I said, please, Lord, just let me die right now. I can't do this. And by the time I was ready to go, there was a little boy following me all over, and I had a translator, and I went through the church. And as the little boy kept saying something to me, and he said, I said, what is he saying? What is he saying? And they said, he's saying, take me home, take me home. And I looked at him and I said, I'll be back. And I took a contractor from our church, and we built a Bible college. And because I had written curriculum for my beauty college, I was able to write the whole curriculum and we were able to give free tuition, because by this time I'd sold my beauty college and had a big home. And so we were able to do that, and we built an orphanage and gave them free tuition if they would spend 1 year working in the orphanage, feeding the children and educating them.
That's where your good business acumen came through, I think.
I think that was just a gift from the Lord. Yeah. I don't think I had anything to do with it.
All right, let's talk about this book, because it deals specifically with starting a Christian residential program, but it's got all the legal, it's even got pictures of legal forms that you can look at, and these would adapt to many kinds of ministry.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't even have to be a Christian. Roadmap. If you wanted to open up a program, it could be a nursing program, it could be any kind of a program that you were taking people in. You could take the scriptures out of here and apply this. Mm-hmm. For me, everything in my life now belonged to the Lord, because I was sitting in one of my classes, and all of a sudden, in our childhood, we were always called mentally ill too. And he said...
Who called you mentally ill?
Our mother. And he said, most mental illness is sin. And I'd already had Greek 1. And I sat back and I said, I'm home. I'm finally home. I know now that there's a Lord, and I know I'm here, and I'm going to work for him. It was an amazing moment in my life.
Absolutely. Now, this is a residential home for women. Now, where do you find the women to bring to it and to kind of rehabilitate them?
Well, that's never going to be a problem, because the courts gave them to me. All the churches wanted me to have them in the area, and I was in a seminary town. And because I had owned that beauty college and made my money in that beauty college and had to go by so many rules and regulations, they had already asked me to become a state inspector. But I knew at that point already I was going to go find God. That was my whole idea when I was...
I want to go back to the beginning of our conversation. When you signed up for seminary, was there any question on there, when did you meet the Lord? Or
Oh, I had to do a whole packet.
On your testimony?
Oh, yes, but I didn't know anything about it, so I
Did you
had
fake
a friend. No, I had a friend, and she came over, and she was a paralegal, and I said, they want a testimony. What's a testimony? I have no idea what a testimony. The seminary knows all this. They know.
I wonder if you were the only one that ever went that wasn't even a Christian.
No, there was one of my professors was, and she said, well, let's just see what they put here, and we'll try to make one up for you. And so we did that, and the night where all the new students in my group were in, and I was the next to the last one, they called, and they all went around, and all the students had been to church all their life, and they'd had all this college, and here's me, and I'm sitting there, and I stood up when it was my turn to give a 2-minute, and I said, well, we know the Lord has a sense of humor because I'm a feminist, and here I am.
That was your testimony.
Dead silence. And they took pity on me from that moment and wrapped me around all the professors' wives.
And they did,
wives.
yes.
And they did. And they worked with me. And I learned discipline, and I loved going to church. I loved everything about it. I just loved it.
You have no idea, but I've never heard a story like this in my life, and I've done this for a long time.
Most people have.
Okay, I digressed on that a little bit, but I just had that curiosity. Okay, let's get back to this. As I said before, this book is so well named because if you're going into any Christian endeavor that's going to be like a 501c3, that's a nonprofit, and your church is a nonprofit, CTN is a nonprofit, and there's just a lot of legal things that you need to do. So this will tell you how to do that. It even has copies of forms that you would fill out and the legalese and some of it. Now I want to get back to where do you get these women, because I've been in the ministry all of my life, and the ones I admire the most, I think, are those that take this shipwrecked human being and rebuild them. And that's what you do, and that's the hard work.
There was, in the town where I lived, there was and I lived outside of, it was called proper San Diego, but it was outside, it was North County. And we had a beautiful seminary there and a lot of churches, and where I lived, it was a very well-to-do area, and they had a lot of banks and a lot of things. And so when I went into seminary, and I had written another book about just wondering about God, and they took that and they put me on probation in seminary. But the moment I graduated, or right before, because I already bought the big house at that time, all the churches in the area, because there was not a woman's program anywhere. Teen Challenge was the only one, and it was not what the churches believed in so much.
I knew the founder of Teen Challenge, yeah.
And so the moment that I opened the door, there were people lined up at the churches that had the homeless people, and they brought them in. And I had 6 women before I even knew what I was doing. I just stood there and looked at all of them, and I thought to myself, all right, the first thing, they've got to have exercise, because these ladies got to get up. They have to get up very early in the morning because they're night ladies and they want to be out in the night. And so I started out with the 6 o'clock. I lived very close to the golf course, walking the golf course, and we'd walk around the 15th hole 3 times. And they weren't allowed to speak. Now, this is your quiet time with the Lord. They're going, I don't even want to be here.
They didn't want to be walking.
They didn't want to be out of bed. So then we would go in, and I had these 6 ladies, and I thought, well, they got to have coffee. I got to have coffee. So they'd have to walk in this cold air, and they'd be out there, and then they'd come in, and I'd say, okay, we're going to have our coffee, and we're going to have our morning Bible study, and then we're going to have a morning meeting, and we're going to find out what all of you, who you are, what you're doing, where you want to go, what's your hope. The one thing, Arthelene, that I found in the house of Sophia, because I had pastors' wives, I've had attorneys, I've had every kind of woman you can imagine, really rich women, really rich. And I've had every kind of, the worst of the worst that you could have, of being abused and being hurt so bad. And I was able to love those women so much. I just loved them because they were hurting so bad. They had one thing in common, only one. They kept asking me, what's a profile of a house? There's one thing they had. They had all lost hope.
Yeah.
And when I figured that one out, we started with, well, Marilyn owned a beauty college. Let's put all their fingernails. Let's teach them how to do that. Let's teach them how to go sit in the jacuzzi. Let's teach them how to go out there and swim 10 laps in that pool.
That's a true woman's ministry.
Yes, it was a woman's ministry.
Listen,
Yes.
if you just tuned in, I didn't have a chance to tell you earlier in this conversation, but I'm talking to Marilyn Mcdonald. We're talking about Nuts and Bolts, an amazing, amazing book. I highly recommend it. We've had her information on the screen, and I'm sure, is this book on Amazon? Or,
Yes, it is.
called Nuts and Bolts.
Nuts and Bolts of a Christian Residential Program.
We're almost out of time, but it sounds like you're just taking this broken, smashed, insulted, abused,
Angry.
probably addicted piece of humanity, and you're rebuilding them. And you know, I'm impressed that you get their nails done and that you give them a facial. Women respond to that.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do respond.
I don't care how bad you are. You respond to somebody trying to help you get fixed up and looking good. I think it's a wonderful part. Okay, we've got just a minute or two. Looking back on it, do you marvel at what God's done with your life? If you had a mother that kind of told you were stupid and
We had to bend over the bathtub naked, and we'd get horrible with a hose, beaten so bad, and then my dad had put us in hot water. I had to beat my brothers up bad. I was taught to fight because my brothers would try to tease me, and my dad wanted me to be able to beat everybody up and be able to do the work he wanted. Do I marvel at the Lord? I was with both my mother and my father when they died. I was the only one with them when they died, and I do believe they are with the Lord.
and you went to seminary and you've established this ministry. I'm telling you, it's a story that only could come
From the Lord.
from the absolute work of the Lord in the life of a human being. And it's very obvious that the Lord has led her every step of the way, even when it was so bad. He had a plan for her life. She intersected with Him, and that plan has been brought to fruition, and it is still working. Telling you, we serve a powerful God.
We do.
We serve a God that can take a girl that's been raised like this and use her mightily in the kingdom of God. What a wonderful God we serve. Please join me next time, remembering there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper.
Amen.
God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.